Amendment which the clerk will read.
Economic development, transparency, and fiscal accountability.
Question comes in adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
Sonia Chang-Diaz.
Senator from Suffolk, Ms. Diaz. We're on 69.
Vote. This is an amendment that simply asks that we have clear, accessible, transparent information available to the voters, to the taxpayers, and to the policymakers of our Commonwealth. And what I, in particular, would like to note is that from my experience in a prior job as a grant officer, this amendment makes total sense to me. As a grant officer, we would never award a grant out to a recipient without asking for clear reporting information in return for those assets. We would never put money out into the world without asking for transparent information back from the grantee about how they were spending the money, what the goals of the spending were, what kind of return on investment we would get.
The Berkshires, Mr. Downing.
President, I'm having trouble hearing the senator from Suffolk.
To please keep their conversations outside the chamber. Senator from Suffolk, Ms. Diaz.
Thank you, Madam President, and through you to my colleague from the Berkshires. As I was saying, as a grant officer at a foundation, we would never put money out into the world without asking for clear, accurate, transparent information from a grant applicant and from a recipient about where they were going to be spending the money, what the goals of the money were, and on the back end of the grant, whether those goals were actually met in fulfillment of the investment that we were making as a foundation. And it makes sense to me that, and equal to that, as a recipient in another job, as one who applied for grants from foundations, I would never expect to get a grant from a foundation without putting forth clear and accurate information about what the goals were of the money we were applying for and what goals we did in fact achieve at the conclusion of that grant cycle. And I think it makes sense that we as a Commonwealth should expect no less from the money that we are putting out into the world in the form of economic development spending, whether it be grants or tax incentives or other measures. We should be at least as diligent with the taxpayers' dollars as any foundation in Massachusetts is with their donors' dollars. Additionally, this amendment also empowers not just us as policymakers, but it empowers the citizens of Massachusetts to participate in the work of stewarding our resources as a state. We are sent here as policymakers to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. This amendment will give us the basic fundamental tools that we need to do that, but it also gives those basic and fundamental tools to the taxpayers and to the citizens and to the residents of Massachusetts to participate with us in this work of stewardship by giving them, not just us, but by giving them clear access to understandable and actually accessible, not just nominally accessible, but genuinely accessible information about where their taxpayer dollars are being spent and what the comparative return on investment is that we're getting from different forms of economic development investments. So I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment. Thank you very much, Madam President.
The senator from Middlesex and Norfolk, Ms. Spilka.
Thank you, Madam President.